Part 38. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 371. The ninth level of the Holy Body Realm, when the Black Vortex Totem Sea was formed and entrenched in Zhangzai's body, when the Death God Dark Dragon Qi and the three kinds of Holy Dragon power had a central connection and conversion, his overall combat power soared to an unprecedented peak. Martial life, mysterious veins and holy body are considered a great realm. Zhangzai has now mastered the first major step of cultivation. At this time, both the holy body and the qi have reached the degree of perfection, forming a reincarnation. On the totem sea, the power of the holy body and the death god dark dragon qi converged here, transformed into each other, and flowed through the body. The whole body was like the starry sky, with the sun, the moon, and the stars hanging high, shining, and the black dragon wandering in it. From the outside, his temperament suddenly changed more. His eyes were as black as ink, like the brilliant black starry sky, and the black breath flowed all over his body. The breath naturally condensed into a dragon shadow, entangled around his body, making him look like an ancient giant beast from the ancient times. Yishan is completely different. He is cold and mysterious, and in control of the overall situation. In the eyes of any elders, he is profound and steady, a genius of martial arts, and he is like a towering mountain that cannot be shaken. Under his suppression, other geniuses have nowhere to hide, but at this moment, a real challenger appears in front of him, that is Zhangzai. When they confront each other, everyone knows that the next duel will probably directly determine the ownership of the ancient Son of God. Now the Jun brothers and sisters of the Sword God Palace have lost their combat effectiveness. But fortunately Sicongxiao and Hualei are still there, which is probably a headache for the Heavenly God Palace. If Zhangzai breaks through to the Totem Sea realm, with the help of Sicongxiao and Hualei, it is really possible that Yishan will cause some trouble. It doesn't matter much. Yishan was defeated before, mainly because his chess game effect was suppressed by Jun Muxi. Now without Jun Muxi, Zhangzai has become stronger, and it doesn't matter much. On the origin, there has been a lot of discussion. Now everyone was staring at the crystals with serious expressions. Just as they expected, Hualei and Sicongxiao stood beside Zhangzai. Their decision was obvious. But what people never expected was that Zhangzai suddenly waved his hand and said, "You two beauties, just rest on the side. Let you watch how I took down this arrogant guy alone." People were in an uproar. Sicongxiao was stunned. In fact, she knew Zhangzai and knew that he would not do anything casually. She could only say gently, "Be careful. If you need it, call us at any time. Brother Zai, we are ready to help you defeat him at any time." Laer believes that the ancient Son of God is yours. Hualei smiled. The two beauties were treated like this, and compared with Yishan being ignored, everyone thought they had seen it wrong. Compared with Yishan, Zhangzai was not serious at all. Why was he so popular with beauties? I believe that there must be many jealous people. After Sicongxiao and Hualei left, only Zhangzai and Yishan were left. Zhangzai took a look. Because he created the Totem Sea, the light of the five suns was weakened too much. It was estimated that they would not be able to hold on for much longer. He had to deal with Yishan before the water ghosts came back. "I have defeated many opponents, and you are the most shameless and the one who has the least self-awareness." Yishan's face was indifferent. He also knew that he had to deal with it before the water ghosts came back, so he couldn't wait to suppress Zhangzai. The chess game Totem of Heaven and Earth swept over. The huge chess game of Heaven and Earth suppressed the Earth and blocked Zhangzai. In fact, under such a blockade, even if Sicongxiao and the others wanted to help, it would be difficult to get in. Zhangzai was trapped in the grid of the chessboard again. I remember that in the first fight, Yishan easily took away his clues and hid his golden shield. But now Zhangzai is different. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, and under the nervous eyes of Sicongxiao, Hualei, and Junmuxi, Zhang Zizai casually transformed the magic eye in his hand into a long sword, and the blood-red eyes kept flashing in the dark night. A rough and fierce battle suddenly broke out at this moment. The son of the ancient gods, from beginning to end, is mine exclusively. Yishan's expression was indifferent, one hand led the black and white soul chess, and the other hand played the mysterious palm of heaven and earth. He pressed up, his movements were swift, and the earth-shaking suppression was all poured on Zhang Zizai's head. Since the self-awakening totem, I have never been defeated. Zhang Zizai, you are short-sighted, how can you understand my height? Are you so noisy because you are afraid? Zhang Zizai smiled sternly, and under the suppression of the opponent, he suddenly attacked. When he took action, it was clear that he was much stronger than before in terms of speed and momentum. At least in terms of realm, he was already at the same level as Yishan. In fact, it can be said that both of them have reached the combat power of the Divine Seal realm, far exceeding the other 8 geniuses. 9 Palaces Heavenly Sword Technique. The same 9 Palaces Heavenly Sword Technique, when used at this time, has a power that is completely different. When Zhang Zizai was still at the 8th level of the Saint Body realm, he had fought against him. At that time, he still had the power to fight back, not to mention now. The 9 Palace Sword formation soared into the sky, and the black and white soul chess suppressed it. Yishan was originally prepared to crush him into a meat pie, but he never expected that the killing power of the 9 Palace Sword formation would be so strong. The barrier of his chess game of heaven and earth was violently torn apart by Zhang Zizai with absolute power. He simply moved freely in his chess game of heaven and earth. Boom! The black and white soul chess was shaken away by Zhang Zizai. There is no skill, this is absolute power. When the 9 Palace Heaven Sword art burst out with such power at this moment, people were simply stunned. On the origin, there were waves of unbelievable uproars, and even the Holy Spirit servant were stunned, which showed how shocked they were by the current situation of this confrontation. So handsome! Hualei was so excited that she was about to cry. She couldn't help but giggle. Brother Zizai hit her heart again. Although Junmuxi and Sicongxiao were still reserved, they were already overjoyed in their hearts when they saw that he could suppress Yishan. Looking at the cold Yishan, they could only think that he was so boring. Yishan was originally a myth in people's hearts and a legend of the divine section. He probably never thought that he would be completely compared to another young man at this time. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 372. Not only strength, but also the image in the girls' hearts. He used to be a popular man, and now the 3 beauties of the divine sect are here, but they are all expecting him to lose. Their eyes full of spring love are all for Zhang Zizai. This made Yishan extremely angry. He didn't want to believe that Zhang Zizai could be so strong. Suppress, he frantically activated the chess game of heaven and earth, suppressing Zhang Zizai's head and restricting his actions, but he never expected that Zhang Zizai would easily tear his chess game of heaven and earth again. He had no skills, and relied on suppressing his power. The power of the Holy Dragon, and the true chi of the Death God Nether Dragon. Zhang Zizai suddenly rushed in front of him, and he saw that he was smiling, but his eyes were as cold as the God of Death. Is it a bit aggrieved to be suppressed? Zhang Zizai laughed loudly, and the magic eye in his hand suddenly turned into a war halberd. 3 Dragon Splitting Styles. The first move, Flying Dragon tearing the sky. Yishan tried his best to resist with black and white soul chess pieces, and the black soul chess piece was blown away. The second move, Tyrannosaurus Split Sea. Yishan was in a panic and could only resist with white soul chess pieces, but the white soul chess piece was directly chopped to the ground. When the 3 moves of Splitting Dragon were performed to the third move, Zhang Zizai's halberd was like an evil dragon from the abyss. At this moment, it pierced out and opened its mouth to bite Yishan. Yishan was no longer able to resist such an attack. The unique skill. In this panic, he performed the unique skill again, looking a little panicked. But how could Zhang Zizai give him a chance? The magic eye pierced with red light, making him mentally confused. This time Zhang Zizai could make him die. However, in order to avoid unnecessary trouble, he still changed the attack, changed the last move of Tianlong Paku, and finally hit Yishan's chest, and pulled him out. Boom! Yishan knocked down 3 trees in a row, sprayed blood 3 times in a row, and finally fell to the ground with a whine. He was afraid that he wanted to struggle to get up and continue fighting, but now Zhang Zizai had broken many bones in his body and completely lost his fighting power. Even his internal organs were entangled with the true chi of the death god Nether Dragon. The black dragon completely enveloped him. He was now covered in blood, his eyes were dull, and it was difficult for him to move. In the blink of an eye, Zhang Zizai's magic eye had become a long sword, against Yishan's throat. He lifted his head with the blade, and when Yishan raised his head uncontrollably, he saw Zhang Zizai's smile. His expression was very indifferent, as if he had accomplished something insignificant. He asked, "Yishan, am I handsome?" "Zhang Zizai." Yishan's voice was hoarse, and he looked at him trembling and struggling. He had never been defeated so badly, so he struggled so much. Zhang Zizai now actually reminded him of the older kids in the village before he awakened his totem. They all bullied him like this. He had trembled because of them for countless nights and dared not sleep. Later, he killed them all. But Zhang Zizai at this time reminded him of the shadow of his childhood. "The ancient god is mine. As for you, rest and recover first." Zhang Zizai put down his sword, turned around, and was too lazy to look at him again. After all, it turned out that he was already defeated. When he looked back, he saw the intoxicated eyes of Sicongxiao, Hualei, and Jun Muxi. Of course, intoxication is an inner activity. Except for Hualei, the other two did not express it directly. "Brother Zizai." So awesome. Hualei didn't care about her image and ran up to hug Zhang Zizai. "Hey, I know I'm handsome, don't take advantage of me," Zhang Zizai said with tears in his eyes. "I want to take it." She also touched Zhang Zizai's waist fiercely, then let go of her hand, and looked at Zhang Zizai's arms reluctantly. "Brother Zhang, I'm really convinced." Jun Ji Unsheng ignored all this, shook his head and smiled bitterly. This is what he really thinks. Although others didn't say it, they probably thought the same way. Who knew that his improvement here was so terrible? I remember when he first came in, he seemed to be in the 6th level of the Holy Body realm. No one had time to improve in the Wushan battlefield for so long, but I didn't expect that his progress was faster than outside. Isn't this a miracle? Even Sicongxiao was convinced. At this time, looking at Zhang Zizai's smiling face, she suddenly remembered that kiss, and it felt as if it was vivid in her mind. She couldn't help but speed up her heartbeat and her face turned red. "Xiao your face is so red, are you in love?" Hualei laughed. "Don't talk nonsense." Sicongxiao wanted to find a crack in the ground to crawl into. At this time, who would care about Yishan who couldn't even get up? Sicongxiao, anyway, already hated him enough, just like she hated Zhang Zizai at the beginning. Only Tianyi came to Yishan's side, his face was livid and miserable. As for Xuanhuan and Miao Yu, seeing the development of such a situation, they had already hidden far away. Everyone knew that Yishan had completely lost the competition for the son of the ancient gods. His advantage was originally his extraordinary strength, but when he was crushed by Zhang Zizai in strength, he seemed to no longer be the son of the ancient gods that people believed. Because of this, the reaction on the origin was even more intense. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Zhang Zizai must have cheated, how could he be stronger than Yishan? The holy servants and servants of the heavenly god palace began to shake their heads in exasperation. As the largest palace, their team originally had the most powerful people, but now everyone was filled with righteous indignation. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. Even the Lord of the Divine Palace looked extremely pale at this time. His fists were hidden in his long sleeves, but it was obvious that he was clenching his fists. He did not expect this result at all. Although he didn't make a sound, his livid face said everything. The master of the Lingshen Palace said from one side, Zhang Zizai's improvement is indeed too great. Their relationship with Tianshan Palace has always been okay, so I can only say this politely at this time. In comparison, Sword God Palace and Wood God Palace are much calmer. Among them, the master of the Sword God Palace has a straighter temper. He sneered, "Stop talking nonsense. Zhang Zizai is indeed extraordinary. Under such conditions, he can turn the tide of the battle. Anyway, I am convinced. My two children have indeed not become Taigu, the destiny of the Son of God." The master of Mushen Palace said, "I originally thought that Yi Tian was the only candidate. It was even said that 9 other people would accompany him in the final election of Wushan battlefield. But now there has been such a reversal, and the plot has taken a huge turn. Zhang Zizai seems to be worthy of the title of our ancient divine son. The reason why Yishan is respected is because of his extraordinary strength. When he was defeated, the person who defeated him could only prove to be an even more incredible genius. Although he doesn't have such a great reputation, why can't he be the son of the ancient god?" Amid people's shock, surprise, and admiration, the leader of the Beast God Palace laughed twice and said, "Don't praise him too much. After all, the black key has not been found yet." In fact, no one knew that he was already smiling in his heart. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 373. For the Lord of the Beast God Palace, if he could cultivate an ancient son of God before he stepped down, it would be the most wonderful thing in the world. The Beast God Palace had been declining for 1,000 years, while the Heavenly God Palace came from behind and produced many talents. During the years he was in office, he had seen too many human feelings. The title of the second place for 1,000 years was really too ugly. Even later, the Sword God Palace and others wanted to climb up. An ancient son of God could indeed improve the status of the entire palace. Before setting off, even a quarter of an hour ago, he never dared to think that someone could take away Yishan's identity as the ancient son of God. Zhang Zizai defeated Yishan so strongly that even he himself did not react. It was not until he saw Feng Xiaoao hug Chen Qingqin in excitement, which attracted countless sidelong glances, that he reacted. But in his heart, Zhang Zizai's performance was still incredible and amazing. Zhang Zizai, could he be the ancient son of God? Yishan lost? I really dare not even think about it. Even he did not think of it, and I am afraid that no one in the entire divine sect and the entire origin continent dared to think of it. For outsiders, those who know Yishan's reputation know that he can crush everyone in this lifeless battlefield and easily obtain the identity of the ancient son of God. Now, the entire origin is still very lively, the Heavenly God Palace is angry, and the Beast God Palace is celebrating. It is really a mixed bag. Don't question it, the sect master is watching. Seeing that the Holy Spirit servant of the Heavenly God Palace is still talking nonsense, the Lord of the Beast God Palace said the sentence, and finally made them quiet down. Moreover, Zhang Zizai took action immediately after defeating Yishan, and he certainly would not waste time. In the tense eyes of the crowd, in the struggling, resentful and angry eyes of Yishan, and in the expectant eyes of Sikong Xiao and others, Zhang Zizai appeared above the lake. At this time, only he can still withstand the heat of this position. He looked around, and it seemed that the water ghost was about to return, and he was ready to move. He immediately took out the 1,000 kinds of beast blood from the space jade pendant. Below him, there were dense bones at the bottom of the lake. I don't know how many source beasts lost their lives here. The bones were arranged in the shape of a devil's claw. Zhang Zizai fell on the devil's claw. He was actually not sure what to do, so he simply dripped the 1,000 kinds of beast blood on the bones little by little. When the 1,000 kinds of beast blood gathered together, it seemed to condense into one, all merging together. When the beast blood dripped on the bones, Zhang Zizai saw that the blood was instantly absorbed. From this change, this is the correct operation method. The Sun Talisman and the 1,000 kinds of beast blood are two major conditions, presented by a total of 3 clues. Among them, the Sun and the Talisman are the 2 clues to attract the totem puppet. The Hour of the Ox and the Devil's Claw are a time and a place. The setting of the sect master's selection of the ancient Son of God can be said to be really wonderful. Zhang Zizai and all the powerful men of the divine sect watched together. When the bones absorbed the blood of the beasts, they turned black. The son of the ancient gods, it's mine. Yishan saw all this, he roared in grief and anger, and struggled to get up, but the remaining death god dark dragon Qi on his body immediately pressed him back. The corrosion of the death god made him continue to scream in pain. Who would have thought that the person who was defeated so miserably and could only watch Zhang Zizai succeed was Yishan. Soon, Zhang Zizai dripped thousands of beast blood on the bones, and the bottle was empty. The bones absorbed all the beast blood and turned black at the speed of naked eye technology. Then, as expected by everyone, all the bones gathered towards the middle point, merged, and weakened. In the black light, the bones actually made bursts of dragon roars, and the corpses of tens of millions of source beasts were combined into the shape of a dragon. In the black light, the dragon continued to shrink, getting smaller and smaller, and finally condensed in front of Zhang Zizai, shrinking to the size of a key. Suddenly, the dragon accelerated suddenly and rushed into Zhang Zizai's right palm. Zhang Zizai stretched out his hand and saw a black dragon-shaped key pattern on his right palm. It was like a totem pattern, engraved on his palm, and it was impossible to get rid of it. When the black dragon-shaped key was completely integrated into the body, the surrounding light disappeared, and Zhang Zizai suddenly felt that the black dragon-shaped key seemed to be connected to his body. For a while, through this key, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth continued to gather towards him. It seemed that after the appearance of this key, his future cultivation speed would continue to increase. Could it be that this black key does not need to be handed in, and it is also one of the rewards of the ancient Son of God? There is no doubt that Zhang Zizai is now the owner of the black key. According to the rules, he is about to become the ancient Son of God. No more suspense. Let me see. When Zhang Zizai jumped out from the bottom of the lake, Sikong Xiao and the others surrounded him, all very curious. When Zhang Zizai showed off a little, they started to make a fuss. Congratulations to the ancient god, Hualei's face was full of envy. Xiao you've made a fortune, I envy you. She and Jun Muxi held Sikong Xiao's arm together, and they really wanted to strip her naked. After all, she was the one who was going to get the universe-level totem next. The universe-level totem, at least the totem level is the same as Yishan's. As for Zhang Zizai, it's even more needless to say. This black dragon-shaped key was printed on Zhang Zizai's body, and everything was settled. On the other side, Yishan fell softly to the ground, lowering his head, afraid that he could not breathe. He probably never thought that he might fail today. So at this moment, he might just want to hide and watch everything with grey eyes. As for Tianyi next to him, he was angry but powerless. He could only grit his teeth and stare at his arm blankly. Looking at Zhang Zizai, who was full of vigor and surrounded by beauties, his face was full of depression and helplessness. Of course, there was also disbelief. He wiped his eyes several times before he finally confirmed that Yishan was defeated. He was proud since he was a child, but since he met Yishan, he knew that there is a world beyond the world. Everything has ended. At this time, the huge origin has landed on the heads of everyone. Those water ghosts may have felt the breath of many strong men. They were going to return, but now they dispersed and escaped cleanly. The origin landed, and the strong men of the divine sect appeared. This further proved that the competition for the ancient Son of God had completely ended. The ancient Son of God had been born. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 374. Under the gaze of the young people, the strong men of the divine sect landed from the origin, and hundreds of strong men appeared on this lifeless battlefield. These people were divided into 5 camps, representing the 5 major divine palaces, led by the 5 palace masters. At this time, the faces of the strong men of the 5 major divine palaces were really different, some were happy and some were sad. The heavenly palace was the most silent. They immediately brought back Yishan and Tianyi, silently healing them, especially Tianyi's arm needed urgent treatment. Other divine palaces, except for Lin Mu, did not suffer any losses. Only the divine servants of the Beast God Palace, except for a few, were basically smiling and happy. Sikong Xiao also returned to his mother's arms. There were many dangers in the competition process of the ancient Son of God, and Cheng Qingqin was worried. Hualei also returned to the side of the master of the Wood God Palace. Zhang Ziyu was in the crowd, and finally saw the person he thought about day and night. Even during this period, with so many beauties accompanying him and their admiration, no one could shake her position in his heart. When he saw her, the entire grey and lifeless battlefield seemed to become bright. Zhang Zizai ignored everyone's eyes, he rushed directly to her, stopped her willow waist, picked her up, and spun several times in the air, happy like a child. Of course, he couldn't forget to pinch her plump and elastic buttocks hard. They looked at each other in silence, and the fiery love in their eyes had already explained everything. Zhang Zizai had never had such a deep affectionate look on any other woman. "Be careful of the impact, put me down." Juxian giggled and whispered in his ear. After smelling so many smells, her fragrance is still the most familiar. That refreshing feeling goes deep into the bone marrow. "Is there a reward?" Zhang Zizai asked maliciously. "Go back to the Beast God Tower, and I'll reward you." She smiled sweetly, and her eyes blinked, making Zhang Zizai's bones soften. The top floor of the Beast God Tower. When Zhang Zizai thought about it, he was extremely excited, as if the reward she gave him was more important than the status of the ancient Son of God. Such a romantic place, it's just the time of spring breeze, how can you not do something exciting to record that eternal moment? As long as you set off to return to the origin divine sect, it will be fine. Seeing her so happy, Zhang Zizai's heart was also full of joy. At this time, he had long forgotten all the people around him. Sikong Xiao, Hualei, and others could naturally see that they ignored all the eyes and embraced passionately. It was impossible not to say that they were envious. They all knew that Zhang Zizai's heart was completely on her. They also knew that she would not live long. "Ahem, Zizai, come here." The Lord of the Beast God Palace coughed twice and called Zhang Zizai. Zhang Zizai was reluctant to leave and loosened his arms. "Don't be impatient, it's all yours." Juxian exhaled lightly. The smiles and every move of this peerless beauty were full of endless temptation. Zhang Zizai stood in front of the Lord of the Beast God Palace. The Lord of the Beast God Palace looked around and said, "You got the black dragon-shaped key, which has been printed on your hand. If nothing unexpected happens, you are the son of the ancient god. However, we have to wait for the master to make a judgment now. After all, it is true only if the master speaks. Of course, there is little possibility of accidents." At this moment, it seemed that the entire Wushan battlefield suddenly became daytime, and the surrounding darkness quickly dissipated, and even the dark clouds in the sky disappeared, revealing the bright starry sky. Although the starlight did not shine as brightly as the sun, It also made the surroundings radiant, as if the entire Wuxian battlefield was shrouded in light. I don't know when, a woman appeared in the sky. She stood in the air, high above. When she appeared, even the 5 palace masters began to salute her with great piety and respect, shouting, "Meet the Xuanhuan Chushan." The 2 sect masters of the origin pillar of God are also known as the Chushan. Generally, they called them Chushan in those days. Zhang Zizai did not look up at first. After a while, he took a closer look and found that the shining Xuanhuan Chushan looked very young, almost the same age as Juxian. She was a very holy, dignified and noble woman. Her appearance could be said to be equally stunning, and her temperament was completely different from Juxian's. This was the temperament of a god, noble and inviolable. Little girls like Sikong Xiao and the others could not compare with her at all. Her beauty was noble and eternal. No matter how beautiful she was, no one dared to have an obscene heart. Zhang Zizai did not expect that one of the 2 sect masters would look so beautiful and so young. You know, it is said that they have existed for hundreds of years. The age of this Xuanhuan Chushan is much older than the master of the beast god palace. At that age, she can still look so young, beautiful, and noble, which is incredible. This shows from the side that her strength must have reached an incredible level. This is the only woman with a peerless appearance, but Zhang Zizai dare not imagine it at all. He now has only respect in his heart. Everyone is waiting for the judgment of the Xuanhuan Chushan. Zhang Zizai is also a little nervous in his heart. Although he is the one who finally completes the task, who knows whether the Xuanhuan Chushan will have some bizarre judgments. The Xuanhuan Chushan's eyes have turned to Zhang Zizai at this time. Her eyes were so penetrating that Zhang Zizai felt as if he was not wearing any clothes and she saw through everything. Her voice also sounded like that of a young girl, but she was full of vigor. She said, "In the battlefield of Wuxian, I set up 5 clues and many tests. After a competition, Zhang Zizai of the Beast God Palace got the key and completed all my tests. Therefore, the position of the son of the ancient gods belongs to Zhang Zizai." "Thank you, Chu Shen." Zhang Zizai hurriedly saluted. With her words, his identity was settled in the future. In this origin god sect, his status was second only to the sect master and the 5 palace masters. Even the Holy Spirit servant had to obey his orders, such as Feng Xiaoao. After saying this, the people of the heavenly god palace bowed their heads completely. They naturally knew that there would be no chance of a comeback. The son of the ancient gods, it was already determined. From today on, you are the ancient son of my origin divine section. Remember, in the future, you must not live up to such an identity, live up to my appreciation of you, and do not disgrace the reputation of the divine section, otherwise, I can remove your identity at any time, Xuanhuan Chushan said seriously. Her words have the power to shock people. Zhang Zizai could only take a deep breath and said, "Chushan, please rest assured. Zhang Zizai will not let the divine sect down." She seemed very satisfied and nodded. From beginning to end, she did not look at the appointed ancient son of God Yishan. From now on, who said that Yishan was appointed by the sect master? Xuanhuan Chushan stared at Zhang Zizai again, as if he had something else to say. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 375. Amid the respect of everyone, she nodded and said, "On December 15th, I will officially declare to the world, invite the strong men and geniuses from all over the world to come to Shenzong and hold the God ceremony. At that time, the ancient Son of God will be officially canonized. At the same time, give Zhang Zizai and Sikong Xiao 6-level evolution sources until their totems evolve to the Zhou level. It's already November. It seems that not long after returning to Shenzong, the God conferment ceremony will be held to officially canonize the Son of Ancient God. This is much more grand than the canonization of a prince by a dynasty. In the origin continent, there are more than 200 countries, and most of them have temples to worship the Son of God. For such a grand event as the ancient Son of God, the Shenzong will ask all the major dynasties to send people to come, which is also a declaration. Of course, every ancient god's son will hold a grand ceremony to enshrine the gods. This is also a way for Shenzong to show off its power. Without showing off its power, everyone knows whether Shenzong is still as strong as before. The son of the ancient god, powerful among all heroes. This grand event naturally paved the way for Zhang Zizai and truly made him famous all over the world. Moreover, there were 6 levels of evolution sources on the spot, until he and Sikong Xiao's totems were successfully evolved to the universe-level totems. It can be said that this was quite a feat. It's so big that it's shocking and mouth-watering. I believe that Yi Tian, who is still recovering from his injuries, will probably vomit blood when he hears that such a glorious Yi Tian belongs to someone else. What people are more envious of is Sikong Xiao. She is so lucky. She won from start to finish, and now she still has a universe-level totem. The ceremony of conferring gods is a grand event that belongs to Zhang Zizai. When the time comes, he will definitely need to show his strength to let the representatives of the major dynasties see it. Shenzong must show his strength. Let the geniuses in the world see what true genius is. December 15th, not too long ago. Then, Xuanhuan first god said, on the first day of the first lunar month, you can enter the first god realm, and you can practice in the first god realm for 3 days every month. This is the advantage of the son of the ancient god. Only the palace master can enter a place like the first god realm, and he cannot enter for too long. It is a place belonging to the 2 first gods. It is said that practicing in it will indeed lead to a more heaven-defying creation. Even if the ancient Son of God can only enter 3 days a month, it is enviable enough. Of course, Zhang Zizai didn't want to be in there all the time, he still wanted to accompany Zhu Xian. This key is a divine object. It can help you absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and facilitate your cultivation. It can be regarded as a reward for you. Just after he finished speaking, Xuanhuan Chushan added another sentence. Zhang Zizai could only thank him again and again. His harvest this time was really great. He was a little excited. He wanted to share such a great creation with the 9 immortals, so he looked at the 9 immortals a few more times. The cursor's time is running out, but she will affect your practice, so you'd better have less contact with her. Unexpectedly, Xuanhuan Chushan suddenly said these words. Zhang Zizai was stunned for a moment. He didn't know where he got the courage, and said, "Don't worry, Chushan, she will only make me stronger." If anyone else said this was disobedience, it could be considered treason, but he didn't expect him to say it so directly. He was really bold. At this moment, even the master of the beast god palace became nervous. If Xuanhuan Chu god was angry and the position of the ancient god's son directly given to him was withdrawn, he would not be able to say anything. Fortunately, Xuanhuan Chu Shen didn't seem to care that much. She said, "Since you like it, then do as you like." Zhang Zikan, the ancient son of God, just wanted to get in touch with a person of this level to see if there was a way to lift the divine curse, but judging from the attitude of the first god of Xuanhuan, he felt that his hope was not very high. This made all his excitement today somewhat dissipate. He looked at Juxian, who looked at him with a gentle smile, and the look in her eyes made people feel distressed. Zhang Zizai smiled, meaning to reassure her that there would be a solution. "Start back." The Xuanhuan prime god said the last 4 words, and his figure gradually disappeared into the darkness. After she left, the entire inanimate battlefield began to quickly merge into the darkness, and everything returned to its original state. After the first god Xuanhuan left, the holy gods of the beast god palace surrounded Zhang Zizai and praised him. "Return." The master of Tianshan Palace had a cold face, said something, and took the people from Tianshan Palace back to the origin. Others also came up one after another. Returning to the origin flew into the sky, and under the control of the master of the beast god palace, flew towards the sky island. Xiao your mother has decided that there are some truths she wants to tell you, Feng Xiaoao said suddenly. Sikong Jin was on the side, looking at Zhang Zizai and the others with cold eyes. Mom, Sikong Xiao was a little confused. Mom, why aren't you standing with your father? Feng Xiaoao said to Sikong Xiao, she has the right to know the truth. You have robbed me of things for so many years. It's time to give them back to me. Do you have any objection? Sikong Xiao glanced at Chen Qingqin and Sikong Xiao for the last time. He gritted his teeth and suddenly smiled. The ancient son of God was once your disciple, how could I have any objection? Feng Xiaoao, I didn't expect you to win, haha. I don't know if he was willing, but after he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Maybe he won't show up next, but this doesn't mean that he has given up. Dad, what's going on? Sikong Xiao shouted several times, but Sikong Jin didn't respond and left directly. Xiao come with me, Chen Qingqin pulled her, followed by Feng Xiaoao, and they walked into a room in the cabin, and Zhang Zizai and Juxian followed behind. What's going on? Zhang Zizai was a little stunned. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. It's a bloody drama, when the truth is revealed, let's watch it together. Juxian smiled mysteriously. When Chen Qingqin, Sikong Xiao and Feng Xiaoao were in the closed room, the three of them stood face to face. In Sikong Xiao's puzzled eyes, Chen Qingqin pinched the hem of her skirt and was a little nervous. Feng Xiaoao coughed, he was also a little nervous, and said directly, Xiao Sikong Xiao used the poisonous dragon leaf to harm me back then, do you know? Yes, Sikong Xiao nodded. Back then, your mother and I had set a wedding date, but after I was poisoned by the dragon leaf, I thought that something went wrong with my practice of the unique skill. Before I became a waste, I felt that I was not worthy of your mother, so I ran away. I was nothing at that time. Then, let's get to the point. Don't be long-winded, Sikong Xiao glared at him. Let me do it. Chen Qingqin struggled for a while and said, Xiao a month after he left, I found out that I was pregnant, but he left without saying goodbye. I didn't want the child to be fatherless after birth, and I was particularly angry at the time. Sikong Jin was pursuing me again and said that he was willing to be the father of the child, so I married him and left Shenzhen. I reported that we were out for fun and gave birth to you soon. We returned to Shenzhen very late, so others thought you were Sikong Jin's child, but in fact you were. Sikong Xiao was stunned for a while. She looked at Chen Qingqin and Feng Xiaoao for a long time and said, is the plot so simple? I thought it would be more tortuous. Feng Xiaoao and Chen Qingqin were shocked. Shouldn't she be in pain? Xiao I kept it a secret from you for so many years and changed your father out of thin air. Don't you feel bad? Chen Qingqin asked nervously. Don't be nervous, I guessed it a long time ago. Sikong Xiao rolled her eyes and glared at Feng Xiaoao, saying, but don't expect me to call you, an old bastard, my father in the future. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 376. Sikong Xiao is not stupid. She has inquired about some recent events. After looking at her mother's attitude, she guessed that she knew who her biological father was. For more than 10 years, she has always regarded Sikong Jin as her father. Now it has suddenly changed. It is impossible not to feel uncomfortable. Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. But after all, she thought that her mother could reunite with the person she really loved, and the perpetrators paid the price. This is a perfect ending. In addition, she got the fortune of the universe level totem in the Wuxian battlefield, so everything is good. So those who are unhappy, let the wind go. Anyway, I am not a little girl anymore. As long as my mother is happy and someone pities you, Xiao will be the happiest in my heart. It is said to be free and easy, but in the end, she still has to hug Cheng Qingqin and cry. Feng Xiaoao stood aside awkwardly, not knowing what to do. Go, Zhang Zizai shouted, and then he clumsily went to hug the mother and daughter. Feng Xiaoao, I warn you, if you are not good to my mother, I will peel off your skin and pull out your tendons. You were so wrong back then, and you have to atone for your sins in the future, Sikong Xiao said seriously. Yes, yes. Feng Xiaoao nodded quickly. At this time, he didn't look like a father, but a son. Let's go, leave time for the three of them, Juxian whispered in Zhang Zizai's ear. Zhang Zizai was too lazy to get involved in their family's affairs. He wished he could have some time alone with Juxian right away. On the way back, because Zhang Zizai miraculously became the son of the ancient gods, the entire origin could be said to be undercurrents. But he and Juxian were completely out of it. They sat together in a closed room, looking at the clouds and stars outside through the window on the origin. Sometimes I miss you so much after not seeing you. Zhang Zizai stared at her profile under the starlight, unable to come back to his senses for a long time. I watch you pick up girls every day. Don't think I can't see it. I've wanted to cut off your tongue a long time ago to see how you can pick up girls. Juxian stretched out his devil's claws and pinched the inside of his arm, which was painful. Spare my life. Spare my life is impossible. Hurry up and give up your virginity. Juxian pressed on him and ravaged him. It smells so good. Zhang Zizai took a deep breath on her chest. At night, after laughing and joking, he stared into her eyes. Zhang Zizai calculated the time. There might be more than 9 months left. Will he lose her? Thinking of the god curse and the day of sacrifice, his heart suddenly turned cold. Silly, what are you thinking about? Juxian whispered softly in his ear. Zhang Zizai shook his head, temporarily freed from the coldness. He smiled mischievously and said, I want to conquer you on the top floor of the Beast God Tower after I go back. Juxian chuckled, glanced at Zhang Zizai with a seductive look, and said, Young man, don't overestimate your abilities. He was actually provoked. Zhang Zizai was full of fire, just waiting for that day to come. A few days later, the Origin finally caught up with Sky Island, passed through the Gate of Origin, and headed towards the Origin altar in the center. Hundreds of them stood on the deck of the Origin. Looking down from the side of the ship, you can see the dense crowd below. These are the gods, quasi-gods, and sacrifices of the divine sect. Today, thousands of people are empty, all welcoming the return of the ancient Son of God. The Origin did not send back the news in advance, so far, the entire Sky Island does not know who the ancient Son of God is. That is why almost everyone in the Origin divine sect came to the Origin altar, waiting for the answer to be revealed. Standing on the Origin and looking down, the crowd was dense, most of them were young boys and girls, which showed that the divine sect was a place full of geniuses. Zhang Zizai was now the person with the highest status under the 5 palace masters. No matter where he went, even the Holy Spirit servant had to make way for him. Xiankang, Lin Mu, Shi Jian, and others could only avoid the sharp edge at this time, and dared not look at him, so as to avoid Zhang Zizai causing trouble for them. As for Yishan, Tianyi and others, they had already hidden far away. Especially Yishan, he dared not show up. The Origin slowly landed in the center of the Origin altar. Seeing the huge Origin coming, the people below had already been busy and announcing it. From now on, Yishan has ascended to heaven in one step. The future of the divine sect will be his world. The ancient Son of God, noble and extraordinary. So enviable, we have all been praised as peerless geniuses, only when we came to the divine sect, did we know there are such terrible people. It is said that even Tianyi can get the universe-level totem. Our Tianshan Palace will be the first of the 5 major divine palaces for at least 1,000 years. How can 1,000 years be enough? With Yaishan and Tianyi, at least 10,000 years, our Tianshan Palace will dominate the divine section. Just watch if you don't believe it. The priests talked a lot, although the gods didn't talk much. They occasionally discussed and talked about Yaishan's future fortune. Among these countless people, there were not too many people from the Beast God Palace. Ling Qingtian and Gu Xianying took Lu Dingxing and the other 4 to a very corner, waiting for Zhang Zizai's return. I hope the boss doesn't get hurt. Bai Shenjin looked worried. Don't worry, my brother is super powerful. Maybe he is the son of the ancient god Ruo Xiaoyu said confidently. Her words attracted a burst of laughter from the surroundings. The people who laughed beside her were also familiar people, including Shi Yun and Shi Yu from Shijia, who laughed and shook their heads, as well as Xianye, Chi Yu, Chi Yuan, Ji Kangming and others. Chi Yuan did not laugh, and she blushed a little when she thought of the boy who teased her. Shi Yu next to her was very noisy, constantly saying, "This time when Zhang Zizai comes back, he will pull him down." Chi Yuan felt that the chance was not great, so after hearing it too much, she felt a little disgusted. Sister Chi Yuan, do you think Zhang Zizai is still my opponent after my breakthrough this time? I have confidence, compared with Sister Sikong Xiao, Shi Yu said seriously. Maybe not. Chi Yuan was a little absent-minded. I knew that Sister Chi Yuan had the most confidence in me. Shi Yu was very excited. He has developed well at this age, and he dreams of Sister Chi Yuan all day long. Unfortunately, both parents think that they are not old enough and they have to wait a few years before they can get married. But every time he sees Chi Yuan, he is already itching. He was very excited when he thought of his future wife's attractive figure. When he said this, someone shouted, "Welcome to the 5 Palace Masters, the ancient god's son." Then, everyone half knelt on the ground, and the crowd suddenly became much shorter. Everyone looked at the origin with great excitement, waiting for the ancient god's son Yaishan to rule the world. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 377. Shi Yu, Lu Dingxing, and others were also watching with great excitement. Although the suspense was not great, after all, their status was noble, and waiting for the revelation always made people very excited. Amid the people's fiery gazes, the 5 palace masters came down from the origin with indifferent faces. The 5 palace masters were extremely majestic. Next was the ancient god's son. When the suspense was revealed, everyone rubbed their eyes. They thought that a young man in white, elegant, calm, and indifferent appeared, but they did not expect that a young man in black suddenly appeared in their sight. He had a smug smile on his face. Although he was neatly dressed and handsome, he lacked a sense of seriousness compared to Yaishan, and the divine sect was a serious place. "Isn't this Zhang Zizai?" He actually ran out randomly. Amidst the stunned silence, a divine servant from the heavenly palace scolded. His voice was not loud, but it was quiet after all, so many people still heard it. "Don't be so presumptuous and disrespectful to the son of the ancient gods." Just after that word spread, the Lord of the Beast God suddenly shouted coldly. His voice had a strong suppression, which swept away instantly and shocked everyone on the spot. At that moment, the whole scene was dead silent for a long time. Everyone's face was stiff and sluggish, looking at the smiling Zhang Zizai. For a moment, they all thought they had seen or heard it wrong. Then, the holy servants also came down. They surrounded Zhang Zizai and the 5 palace masters in front, and there were also many servants. Yaishan and Tianyi, who they expected, did not come out until the end, but they all lowered their heads, dejected, and did not dare to face everyone. Although such a scene was dreamy and made too many people unbelievable, no matter how many times they wiped their eyes, this was an unchangeable fact. "Brother, you have become the son of the ancient gods." I said it. Ruo Xiaoyu jumped up excitedly. At this time, everyone was kneeling. If she jumped up and spoke, she would be extremely conspicuous. However, who can control her at this time? Damn it, Bai Shenjin, Lu Dingxing, and Wan Qian all widened their eyes and fell into a carnival. Their excitement was written directly on their faces. Although it was inappropriate for them to make loud noises, who would care about them at this time? Sister Qi Yuan, is there a problem? Shi Yu looked pale and trembled as he looked at Qi Yuan. His heart had collapsed. No problem, he just became the son of the ancient gods. Qi Yuan looked at the spirited young man in confusion, and was a little dazed. It was not until Shi Yu asked that she reacted. Impossible, how could he beat Yi Tian? They are not at the same level. Did he cheat? Shi Yu said excitedly. Don't talk nonsense, the son of the ancient gods, that was decided by the sect master, Qi Yuan said. Her words made Shi Yu very uncomfortable. For some reason, he felt like a clown at this moment, and Qi Yuan's eyes were not on him. You are not deceived by him, Shi Yu clenched his fists and said. Qi Yuan was stunned. She didn't expect Shi Yu to ask her like this. She pursed her lips and said, how can you say such a thing? I won't pay attention to you. Shi Yu was still a little scared when she saw that she was angry, and apologized quickly. While he was apologizing, the Lord of the Beast God Palace had already announced happily, in the competition of the Wushan battlefield and the final selection of the ancient Son of God, after twists and turns and trials, Zhang Zizai of the Beast God Palace stood out and was personally named the Ancient Son of God by the sect master. On December 15th, the divine sect will hold a grand ceremony for conferring gods. At that time, the sect master will personally announce it to the world and evolve the totems of Zhang Zizai and Sikong Xiao to the universe level. At that time, the strong men and geniuses of the major dynasties will be present. Our divine sect must show the master's demeanor and style, and all the disciples need to regulate their behavior for this. His words were really explosive. With so many palace masters present, he couldn't lie about the master of the section. In other words, it was a foregone conclusion that Zhang Zizai would become the son of the ancient gods. Not only that, even Sikong Xiao benefited from it, and his totem could evolve to the universe level. This passage did not mention Yishan at all, which meant that Yishan, who was dejected and wanted to leave here immediately, had nothing to do with the son of the ancient gods. No matter how many people's worldviews were destroyed by this passage, the facts were already determined, and the things announced could not be changed. Congratulations, son of the ancient gods, Zhang Zizai. Someone took the lead, and cheers swept across the world for a while. Many people bowed their heads. Because they understood that when Zhang Zizai had the identity of the son of the ancient gods, he was noble, and no one had the qualifications to provoke him. Even Yishan had to be respectful when he saw him. After all, Yishan was just an ordinary son of the gods. The holy servants had to surround him. Sikong Jian, Shi Jian, Feng Xiaoao, their status and position were not as good as Zhang Zizai, unless they could become palace masters. As for Shi Yu's level, let alone challenge again, his status in the divine sect is already a world of difference. Everything is a foregone conclusion. The final selection of the ancient Son of God has ended. Next, we will prepare for the conferred God ceremony. We will specifically assign the tasks of the major divine palaces. We will disperse today. After the Lord of the Beast God Palace finished speaking, he put away the origin and returned to the Beast God Palace first. I have packed up the top floor of the Beast God Tower. I will accompany my mother during this period and will not go back. You can do whatever you want. Sikong Xiao pushed Zhang Zizai from behind. When Zhang Zizai turned around, she glared at him and then left with Chen Qingqin. You are sensible, Zhang Zizai smiled. Sikong Xiao thought for a long time and decided to change her name. Sikong Jin was the man who poisoned her father and designed to occupy her mother. Although he had been good to Sikong Xiao over the years, he just used her as a pawn for his promotion. She had no blood relationship with him and now had little affection for him. It was meaningless to take his surname. Although she had no feelings for Feng Xiaoao now, she was related by blood after all. If he was willing to treat her mother well, she would not mind taking his surname. She was originally going to call her Feng Xiao, but Feng Xiaoao suddenly had an idea and gave her a new name according to Cheng Qingquan's name format, called Feng Xiao Xiao. She was quite satisfied with the new name, so she agreed. As soon as she left, Ling Qingtian and his wife had brought Ruo Xiaoyu and the others over. Brother Xiaoyu jumped up and down excitedly, wishing she could hang on Zhang Zizai's body. I haven't seen Xiaoyu for a long time, and I miss this little girl. However, Xiaoyu has grown up and is no longer the little girl she used to be. It's a bit heavy to hang on him. Eat less, don't get fat, Zhang Zizai laughed. Nonsense, stinky brother. Haha, let's go back to the Beast God Palace first. Let me check your progress and see if you are lazy. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 378. They left here and returned to the Beast God Palace. The son of the ancient gods had left, so the origin holy altar was naturally completely dispersed. After all, the suspense had been revealed. On the way, Ling Qingtian still had an incredible expression. If I had known earlier, I would have applied to go with you to see how wonderful your performance was, Ling Qingtian said regretfully. He was the one who brought Zhang Zizai here, so he knew how terrifying Zhang Zizai's progress was. From this progress, it was normal to surpass Yishan. Thank you Uncle Ling for helping me look after them during this period, Zhang Zizai said gratefully. As a brother, it was his responsibility to protect Ruo Xiaoyu and the others. Ling Qingtian didn't go at that time because he wanted to solve Zhang Zizai's worries. After all, Shi Yun and the others were still ready to move. Back to the Beast God Palace, Juxian pinched his chin and said charmingly, I'll wait for you. After that, she went back to the Beast God Tower first. It was daytime now, after all, it was not very convenient, otherwise Zhang Zizai would have followed directly. Now that he is in the Beast God Palace, everyone has to salute him when they see him, with eyes full of envy. Zhang Zizai has brought honor to the Beast God Palace. At least in the Beast God Palace, there are basically not many people who will secretly slander him. Those eyes are nothing but admiration. Those who once opposed him can only feel ashamed now. Arriving at the Qingtian Palace, Zhang Zizai checked the progress of Lu Dingxing and others. The battle tactics they are practicing now are very top-notch, plus the totems are good, so the speed is not slow. Especially Lu Dingxing, who is close to the Saint Body realm. However, it is almost impossible to catch up with Zhang Zizai. Zhang Zizai is a little worried. No matter what, he still hopes that they can at least reach the level of Shi Yu and others. After all, he regards them as brothers. As the son of the ancient gods, I will see if I can get a good evolution source. I will help you again, Zhang Zizai said. Boss, can I sacrifice myself? I have already washed it clean, Baishan Jin screamed. Give it to the panda, haha. Live broadcast, otherwise I won't give it to you, Zhang Zizai laughed. I don't want it, get out. When Baishan Jin pounced on him, Lu Dingxing kicked him away, showing his decisiveness as a straight man. After playing with them, Zhang Zizai sent them away in the evening. Now no matter where he goes, there are a group of people respectfully, even the gods, they have to address Zhang Zizai with respect, with respectful eyes. Seeing that the sky is already dark. Looking up, the stars are bright today. Endless galaxies shine in the sky, and the stars are even colorful. Zhang Zizai thought that if it was on the top floor of the Beast God Tower, through the sky crystal stone, the scenery should be more beautiful. The person who thinks about day and night may have been waiting for him to go back. Zhang Zizai walked up to the Beast God Tower step by step. Along the way, he has been thinking about a question. That is, how can he make her have the same fate as ordinary people? He calculated the time, more than 9 months. He had spent a lot of time in the Wuxian battlefield. He had been practicing for 9 months, and it had passed in the blink of an eye. His steps on the top floor of the Beast God Tower were a little heavy. He wanted to ask himself, if a man couldn't even save the life of his beloved woman, then what was the point of practicing? Even if he became a god, what was the point? Even if he was immortal, what was the point if he could only watch her lose her? Zhang Zizai had no worries. His parents must have gone free and easy. His Daejiang County was taken care of by his brothers and sisters. His family was carried on by his brother. He was a free man, not afraid of death. He followed the spiral staircase up, and suddenly remembered that he was so weak when he first met her. She helped him resolve the life and death crisis in Daejiang King City. When he arrived at the sacrifice temple, she would escort him again. And she was a mystery. She seemed to have forgotten her troubles and was completely interested in teasing Zhang Zizai. He was too young at that time and could only look up to her. He didn't expect that she would fall in love with him. So from then on, Zhang Zizai wanted to protect her forever. The days at that time were very happy. Unfortunately, after returning to the divine sect, under pressure from many sides, it was difficult for her to be carefree again. Recalling the past, and looking up at the long spiral staircase, he knew that fate was about to judge. Life and death are determined by fate, and wealth and honor are determined by heaven. Are fate and heaven really so terrible? The divine curse, which God cast a curse on her. If there really is such a God, Zhang Zizai wants him to die. Finally, he stood at the highest point of the spiral staircase of the Beast God Tower, and a door opened in front of him, just under the starry sky. Through the door, Zhang Zizai could hear the sound of her heartbeat. He gently pushed open the door, and what came into view was a dazzling world shrouded in the stars. The sky was full of stars, all above his head, like pearls. No wonder people yearn for the top floor of the Beast God Tower, it is so wonderful here. But such a beautiful world could not attract Zhang Zizai's attention. His eyes fell completely on the woman in front of him. Under the starlight, she was only wearing a thin white gauze. Except for the key parts, the snow-white skin could be faintly seen under the gauze. She was holding a pipa in her hand. When Zhang Zizai opened the door, the sound of the pipa sounded, and her graceful body began to dance gracefully in front of him. This chapter is not yet finished, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. That hot figure, twisting and swaying, forming waves of hips and breasts, round and smooth thighs, swaying in front of his eyes, looking around, charming, that eye movement, red lips and cherry tongue, it is absolutely not an exaggeration to say that it is an unprecedented beauty. Hualei, Feng Xiaoxiao and Jun Muxi are young and shy, how can they be as charming as her? The sound of the pipa, sad and long, penetrated into the heartstrings, and made people feel itchy, just like her tender words, which were heard by the ears. A gentle look and a moistening of the pink tongue all contain thousands of friendships. Her dancing posture is charming and elegant, just right between the two, not vulgar, and not unattainable. The swing of her soft hands, the twist of her long legs, the swing of her thin waist, the wave of her hips and breasts, always show her charm that makes people numb in the most subtle places. It must be said that she is indeed a natural fairy, but all this only blooms for Zhang Zizai. Zhang Zizai is immersed in it. Although he is hot all over, he came up with a confused mood. What he sees now is not only her tenderness and gracefulness, not her charm and enchantment, but her love and reluctance for himself. Even if she did not show it, he could feel it deeply in the depth of her eyes. He admired her singing and dancing this song, waving tenderly under the starlight. I have never heard her play the pipa, nor have I heard her singing with a gentle voice. As her eyes moved, She opened her red lips lightly, singing and dancing unparalleled. There is a beauty in the south, dancing lightly with a green waist. The banquet was held at the end of the 9th autumn, and the flying sleeves brushed against the clouds and rain. As graceful as orchids and green, as graceful as a flying dragon. Yu Yan stopped dancing in the front stream, and Wu Ji stopped her white silk. The slow movements could not be exhausted, and the complex postures were bent to the end. The lotus flowers swam through the waves, and the messy snow was lingering in the wind. When the earrings fell, the eyes flowed, and the long skirts wanted to go up to the sky. I was only worried that I could not catch them, so I flew away to chase the startled wild geese. She turned her back to Zhang Zizai, swimming like a water snake, graceful and unparalleled, until Zhang Zizai gently hugged her delicate body from behind and rubbed her ears. The sound of the pipa stopped abruptly. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 379. He rested his head on her fragrant shoulder, smelling her fragrance. When he looked down, he saw that there were unfathomable peaks that were difficult to grasp with the palm of his hand. Zhang Zizai narrowed his eyes and said in her ear, "In order to seduce me, the old witch spent a lot of effort. The pak choi is extraordinary. There are so many flowers and plants around me. I can't show off my box packing skills," 9 Immortals said in a sweet voice as her tongue wandered around. Her body was still swaying gently, and her caressing was full of affection. Zhang Zizai took a deep breath of her fragrance. He always wanted to remember it forever, so he hugged her tighter because he was afraid that she would disappear like a mirror in the water. Maybe in such an atmosphere, he shouldn't worry about the future, but he still couldn't get rid of it. His hands were so hard that they almost broke her waist. "Jur, I don't want to lose you." Zhang Zizai's voice was hoarse, like a beast roaring with a lowered voice. Juxian gently held his hand and said softly, "The road ahead is long, no matter how bumpy it is, life is just an illusion. Just find the one you love and enjoy all the happiness in the world. Don't desire too much, it will only increase our worries, let's just enjoy life as much as possible." "Yeah." Zhang Zizai smiled bitterly and shook his head. He knew that she had never imagined hope. However, he knew that he could never give up. He pressed her cheek gently. In fact, for him, holding her like this was the most wonderful thing in the world. It was quiet and natural at this time, the two hearts were close together, and the sound of her heartbeat could be completely heard. This kind of spiritual collision will always surpass the impulse of the physical body. Although something happened to her in countless dreams, at this moment, he just wanted to protect her. She gently twisted her body, facing Zhang Zizai, gently holding his face, and said, "You are like a naughty little puppy, you are always so enthusiastic and make my heart young. In this ridiculous life, I am the most lucky to meet you. You can't be sad, there is infinite beauty waiting for you in this world, and as for me, maybe I can return to my hometown." "You said, isn't everything a happy ending?" Zhang Zizai said confusedly, "Isn't your hometown the Shenzone?" She giggled so hard that her branches trembled with laughter, and she shed tears. She said, "Fool, how is it possible here? Have you ever seen that I have the slightest sense of belonging here? Then tell me, where is your hometown? I want to take you back," Zhang Zizai said seriously. But she smiled and said, "That's a place you can't reach." "Why?" "Because it's another world." "Another world?" Zhang Zizai was a little confused. "The continent of origin, isn't it the world?" Seeing his confused but serious look, Zhu Xian gently used her slender fingers to help him tidy up his messy hair. She said, "Because you are so good to me, I will tell you a secret that even the 9 gods don't know." "Speak quickly, or I'll crush you to death." Zhang Zizai put his hand on her buttocks and threatened. Rude Juxian rolled his eyes at him. This look could already make people feel numb all over. She gently placed her hands on Zhang Zizai's chest, her eyes trembling as it seemed to bring back some memories. "I have memories of my previous life. Since I was born, I have had memories of my previous life." Hearing these words, Zhang Zizai found it incredible that the hometown she was talking about was actually the hometown of her previous life. He didn't interrupt and listened carefully. "My previous life was in a place called Earth. It was a place without any warriors. Everyone was immortal, but it had technology that you can't imagine. For you, that might be a miracle. The world there does not belong to the continent of origin. How is that possible?" Zhang Zizai was dumbfounded. Is there such a world? No wonder what the 9 immortals say sometimes is so strange. Her eyes fell into confusion and she said blankly, "I am a very ordinary person. My parents divorced when I was young. My father chose to leave us and find other women. It was my mother who raised me. You can't imagine how ordinary I am, even my appearance is ordinary among people, and no man wants to take a second look." She grabbed Zhang Zizai's arm with some force, and her nails were lightly piercing Zhang Zizai's flesh. "Perhaps this memory is painful. My mother worked too hard. She relied on hard work to earn a living. We depended on each other. I studied hard and took exams hard. After graduation, I became a teacher and started to have a stable income, so I could repay my mother's kindness. The kindness allows her to have a good rest after working hard all her life, but... She suddenly cried. Zhang Zizai never thought that she would be so desperate and painful. "I was sick, and within half a year, I died. During that half year, she stayed by my side every day. How did I get here? I want to repay her, She looked at Zhang Zizai with some trembling, unable to speak any more. She did not dare to recall those things, because once she recalled them, her heart would be filled with heart-wrenching pain. "I want to go home, I want to go back and take care of her. She is old and loses me again. What should she do?" She asked Zhang Zizai tremblingly what she should do. Since she came to this world, going home has always been her dream, but now it has been almost 30 years. Is her mother still alive? How did she get through these 30 years? She lives alone. Her most beloved daughter persisted in the torture of illness for only half a year, and finally passed away. That was her only spiritual support. In the future, what faith would she have to support her to live? I feel so bad. Juxian looked at him confusedly, with mist in her eyes. Her fingers were trembling all the time, and she didn't know where to put them until Zhang Zizai grabbed her fingers. She suddenly burst into laughter and said, "You say, are my 2 lives like a joke? I lived to 24 years old once, and I can only live to 30 years old once. If there is such a thing as fate, I should hum his ancestors, right? Yes, it's like a joke." Zhang Zizai said these words with great difficulty. He also wanted to ease the atmosphere, but when he said it, he found that his throat was on fire. "Silly, I didn't mean to be sentimental to move you. You wanted to know about my past and present life. Are you pitying me now? Don't worry, fate has been so cruel to me. If I wasn't happy, I would have let that bastard succeed. So, I came to the conclusion that life is short and we should be passionate and relaxed, right? All the rules and regulations, go to hell." Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 380. After 2 lives, you can't live more than 55 years. Zhang Zizai was furious. He didn't know who to be angry with. If there was such a thing as fate, then he was angry and hated fate. The raging fire burned in his heart. She wiped away her tears. She could still laugh in front of Zhang Zizai. That was her attitude towards life. The days were so short. How could she be worthy of herself if she was not happy? But why? Why should she have regrets in both of her lives? In her previous life, she could not honor her mother, and that pain was transferred to the next life. Why was fate so cruel? In this life, she was also reluctant to leave Zhang Zizai. She had the right to pursue love, but God only left her 9 months. She reached out her hand, took Zhang Zizai's neck, and hung on him, swinging, and said softly, "Little darling, don't be angry, time is running out, just love me well. Life doesn't need to be too long, it just needs to be vigorous. Maybe in the next life, I can still remember you." How precious would that be? Zhang Zizai gently hugged her and lifted her up horizontally. On the top floor of the Beast God Tower, there is a big snow-white bed, which is enough for more than a dozen people to roll on. Needless to say, it must have been put there by Xuanhuan. The previous owner of this room would not put such a wild bed. Zhang Zizai gently put her on it, looking at her curvy body with a fiery gaze. "I still made a profit in this life. You don't know how ordinary I was in my last life. I guarantee you will not be interested in me," she said with a smile. It seems that she has completely freed herself from the previous sadness. "What a joke, do you think I am the kind of person who only looks at appearance?" Zhang Zizai said. "Then you value inner beauty?" Xuanhuan asked suspiciously. "No, I also look at the figure." Asshole. Xuanhuan stretched out a pair of long legs, hooked on Zhang Zizai's neck, and pulled him up with a little force, pressing on her. "Add those 24 years, how many years have I not touched a man?" Xuanhuan pinched his ears and pulled him in front of him. "I'm not good at arithmetic, it's probably hundreds of years," Zhang Zizai laughed. "So tonight, I'll make up for all your years," Zhang Zizai said domineeringly. The bright starry sky is just above their heads. The colorful light sprinkled on their smooth flesh. "After dreaming for so long, I finally really entangled with her. Just like she said, life is short, so you must be passionate and indulgent. And when you indulge, don't think too much, just think about how to completely conquer the other person and let her fly to the clouds." That night, all the priests above the 90th floor of the Beast God Tower moved away. Because the noise was too loud, it was impossible to practice with such an indulgent sound. The whole Beast God Tower was shaking from top to bottom. Everyone knew what they were doing, but that was the ancient Son of God. Even if he was so unbridled in a sacred place, who could control him? But they didn't know that this was just the beginning. After breaking the shackles, Zhang Zizai, who promised to make up for her for decades, must work hard every night. In the words of Xuanhuan, if she didn't do this, she would be sorry for her stunning appearance in this life. Zhang Zizai had never been so unbridled in a night. I don't know how many hours had passed. Both of them were exhausted and lay on the snow-white and soft big bed, falling asleep. Both their bodies and minds had a deep rest. It was equivalent to a soul practice. Under the night, their totems were shining, turning into black and white silk threads, entwined together invisibly. The two of them slept naked in each other's arms. In Zhang Zizai's arms, she found a sense of security she had never had before. Also shining was the black key in Zhang Zizai's palm. The black light entangled the two of them, like a dragon, entwining Zhang Zizai and Xuanhuan. That night, Zhang Zizai had a dream. There was only one picture in the dream, that was a dark world in the void. In that dark world, there stood a bronze gate. The gate was ancient and desolate, and many strange things were carved on it, including source beasts and weapons. The bronze gate was extremely heavy, suppressing the entire world and becoming the core of the world. Even in the dream, Zhang Zizai felt his scalp tingling. His heart kept roaring. Until he woke up, he found that he was basking in the scorching sun, and there was a sun hanging just above the sky crystal stone above his head. The sun had risen to the middle, indicating that it was noon at this time. Of course, they had been lingering until late last night, and Zhang Zizai had also poured out all his anger on her. However, after all, he was young, and when he woke up, he had almost recovered, and he felt that he could still fight for 300 rounds. But in his confusion, he touched his side and found that there was nothing. He was immediately startled and jumped up quickly. Jur. At that moment, the feeling of loss was so panic. She was not there. Until this moment, Zhang Zizai could better understand how painful it would be if he lost her. He couldn't bear it. This woman was his first and perhaps the only one. She had been engraved in his heart. Losing her is no different from death. Her every move and smile, her freedom and ease, her pain, were all connected to Zhang Zizai. He found that he could no longer do without her, her charm, and her smile. He said that he had no worries, but in fact, she was already the biggest concern in his life. He already possesses her. He made a decision last night that he would no longer give himself a way out. He had already sworn in his heart that he must live and die together. Otherwise, he would not break through the barrier in his heart and go wild with her. Indulgent. But is she gone? Leave without saying goodbye? Thinking of it, Zhang Zizai trembled in his heart. He was like a young child, panicking and rushing down to the Beast God Tower to find her. Suddenly, the door opened with a creak, and Juxian came in holding her waist. When she saw Zhang Zizai, her eyes widened and she said angrily, "Beast, please be gentler. You are still working so hard, my waist is almost broken. You broke it, don't you know how to care for the elderly?" It turns out that she didn't leave without saying goodbye. Zhang Zizai held her tightly and rubbed her in his arms. "What's wrong?" Juxian felt the hesitation in his eyes just now. She already knew that he might have thought that he was gone. "No, I caught a cold last night and had a runny nose." "Wipe it on your clothes." Zhang Zizi touched his head, his smile full of sunshine. She smiled too. When she discovered that there was indeed snot on her clothes, her eyes suddenly burst into flames. "Wow, I want to die with you."